Welcome to the Grit and Grow podcast, where we talk to guests who are pursuing excellence in both sport and life, who encourage and motivate us to become better mentors, coaches, parents, and athletes. My name is Shane Sowden, head men's basketball coach at Briarcrest College, and also your co-host.
And my name is Justin Simpkins, co-host and director of Prairie Hockey Academy. Today's episode with Geoff Glasspell was really good to me. I actually learned a new terminology. We talked lots about transformational coaching on this, but today we got to talk about purpose-driven coaching with Geoff, and that was really something that I took away.
Yeah, like just a new take on the whole transformational aspect of why we coach and what's important about that. You know, his quote-unquote look in the mirror moment years ago when he had to make a change in his coaching philosophy was fun to hear that story. And then, you know, we asked a question about how does he define success, and he didn't want to talk about success. He wanted to talk more about significance, and that was fantastic. I wrote that one down and are going to start using that right away. So yeah, again, Geoff was another really fun guest
with core values like commitment that lead to loyalty, with integrity that leads to excellence. Today's episode is packed with lots of stuff. On today's episode, our guest is Geoff Glasspell, a coach, educator, and the founder of Masterpiece Basketball in Regina. Geoff's a former University of Regina Cougar guard who built one of the most consistent high school programs in Saskatchewan. What stands out about him isn't just the championships, it's the message behind his coaching. Through Masterpiece camps, he helps young athletes see that their worth isn't tied to their performance, and that mindset changes everything on the court and off it. Enjoy today's episode.
Geoff, great to have you on the show this week. Really excited to chat with you. To start off, we love to interview guests who are pursuing excellence in their given fields, personally, professionally. So just to kick things off today, what would be your definition of excellence?
That's a good one, because with Masterpiece, we actually work on commitment, integrity, and excellence. Those are kind of the three keystones to what we're trying to accomplish. So ultimately, we work with commitment. We talk with the kids about, you know, you start something, you work through it when it's hard and difficult, and you finish something. And then with integrity, if you do the right thing because it's right, even when no one else is looking, then the end result is excellent. So to me, excellence it's more the process than it is or the product of those two processes, I guess, would be the two things that I think are, what we try and promote to our kids and things within Masterpiece.
Okay, so excellence it's not scoreboard related to you. This isn't what excellence means. It's actually, you know, you're teaching your athletes at Masterpiece Basketball that commitment, you know, it leads to having to do, when you commit to something, sometimes you just got to do it even though you don't want to, and even when nobody's watching, and that's integrity. And when you do those two pieces, that leads to excellence.
Yeah. So to me, excellence is just a product of the process. So like at the end of it all, like I'm not looking, like championships might start to form or along the way, but ultimately if I'm working on those big character traits with the kids or with whatever team I'm coaching, they're not just always kids, but with those young men or young women, ultimately that is what will define excellence to me. And I would even say that I know lots of people would look at championships as being like a big part of that or a process of that. But really, I'm looking for, you know, down the road, you know, 20, 25 years, you know, down the road, what are they going to be? Are they good husbands? Are they good fathers? Are they good wives? Are they good mothers? Right? Like those are the big things to me that are what is excellence, as opposed to, again, you can win a lot. I've been on teams that have been very good. You've got lots of really good players and they dislike each other. They're not necessarily great human beings. So excellence to me would go along with that, which also coincides with my faith and as a Christian too.
I'm really curious, like, you know, Geoff, you've been coaching since, if I get this right, since 2003, approximately?
Yeah, even before that, like during my internship. So I played at the University of Regina basketball from 98 to 2002. And even during that time, I started to coach with Basketball Saskatchewan on like the side a little bit. And so I would say in 2000 is really when I started, even some elementary coaching just along the way in my internship and pre-internship. And yeah, so from there, it's just kind of, snowballed effect on that.
Well, and so, basically been coaching for 25 years and, tons of success, starting and building up the program at Regina Christian School and then starting Masterpiece basketball camps roughly 5 years ago. What, like, I'm curious. I'm always curious why people pick the values that they do. Why commitment? Why integrity? Why excellence?
Yeah. So, okay. So I need to go back in history like a long ways, I would say. So I grew up in northern British Columbia when I started playing basketball. And there was, grade 5 was the first time I really picked up a basketball. And I remember running up and down the court forever. I'd played hockey prior to that a little bit. And, and never touching the ball and running up and down the court. And my mom often saying, well, upset, by that. And anyway, long story short, there was a gym coach or a guy up in Terrace who ran a program. And in that program, it was the senior high coaches or the players ended up coaching teams. And so it was a really unique way to develop camaraderie with the community, but also with the players and the younger players who are coming up in that way. So, lots of my stuff started kind of back then, even thinking about that process and how to, use these different things along the way. Then I moved to Alberta, played at Prairie Junior High School. Then I moved to Cairnport and then into Regina. So I've got to see a lot of different coaches, coaching styles and different things throughout. So over the 25 years that I've been coaching, as soon as I was done playing at the University of Regina in 2002, I moved into an athletic director role at Regina Christian School. And there was no sports at all, like zero. There was no, so everything that I did, I had to start from scratch. And I did that, obviously I had help along the way, but even trying to understand like the process of getting into SHSAA and how do you actually form into Regina High School's Athletics Association, it was just a process. So throughout that 25 years, what I've seen is exactly those attributes that I think are the most important fundamentally in that type of a program, not only for sports programs, but this could be academic programming. It could also be very, very well the same thing for any sort of a business. And again, that's commitment, integrity, and excellence. And there's a lot within commitment, integrity, and excellence to break down, but those would be the three main things that I've looked at. And loyalty is a huge part of that as well.
Right. And like you said, there's a lot, right? A commitment, loyalty probably can easily kind of be brought into commitment as part of what commitment looks like. But when you're working with student athletes, giving them 20 core values to try and remember is really difficult with our attention span these days, that keeping it to those three that you can identify, that each day, it sounds like each day you're talking about these three things. They're not just words on a wall for you. What does commitment look like? How does commitment come into like whether it's a skills practice with Masterpiece basketball, or if it's like a team practice with RCS, like, are you talking about commitment at each practice, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so we kind of do like purpose-driven coaching. So what I'll do is at Masterpiece, we'll have a word of the day essentially, and the kids will specifically, I'll say like today's word of the day is commitment. We'll ask the kids what it's about. And there's a lot of good research that in regards to trying to theme something. It takes, kids need to hear it 7 times, or people need to hear it 7 times within a shortened span of time, so that every time they come to the program, the first word they'll hear on the very first day is commitment. And then, so we're going to say, okay, we're looking for guys who are committed today when things are tough. Are you guys actually going to push through it? Are you resilient? Are you, aspects of commitment would be like respect, discipline, accountability, confidence, and even obedience, right? Like there's different aspects within that. So take a specific word, and then at the end of the day, we're working on skills. We move into a game situation format, and then we all come together, both teams, not just a single team usually, and then we discuss and give a player of the day, but not necessarily for just skills or the best player, but for showing something that's a little bit different. And I think that makes us unique.
Yeah, I've got to be a part of that circle at the end of a competition, a practice, and it's always cool seeing, and hearing from the guys that, they just played for 2 hours or whatever, and hearing what they took away and how did they embody the word of the day or the values, right? And I know what I would say as the coach, but then sometimes it's really interesting to see what this 10-year-old or this 13-year-old is taken away. I'm like, okay, and then to have parents there seeing that be emphasized on the sideline, I think is invaluable, right? And a chance to celebrate that at the end of practice kind of brings it back into focus as to what's really important. Geoff, when did you know you wanted to be a coach / educator?
Yeah, so grade 4. So I can go back. Yeah, I can go back a long way, actually. So I had some terrific coaches. One guy's name was Edgar Veldman, and he was up in Terrace. And anyway, he was just a terrific basketball player. He had played at Dordt University in the States, so could really play. yeah, and 6 foot, 6'4", 6'5", right? Yep. So he did lots of things that I was like, man, I want to do that or be that at some point in time. And so started right there. And one day he missed or he couldn't be there. So my mom was a substitute teacher, came in for phys ed class. My mom said, do you want to teach the class? I taught the class. And from that point forward, I want to be a teacher. So it was kind of a fun way to, teach something to other people in my class. And I guess you really learn something when you teach something as well. So I think those are some important things that I learned then.
Awesome. I kind of want to go back just a bit, because you mentioned a statement or a terminology, purpose-driven coaching. And, what does purpose-driven coaching mean to you?
It means, so for me, masterpiece is ultimately it's from Ephesians 2:10, right? So for we are his masterpiece created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God created for advance for us to do. And ultimately, you have to ask yourself some questions like, why has God given me a skill set, whether that's a basketball skill set, that doesn't necessarily seem to intertwine with the, just the Great Commission, right? Like going and making disciples and baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So in my mind, I'm trying to reconcile, how does God given me this opportunity or this platform, and then able to use basketball as a way to share the gospel with people. And that's literally what keeps it purpose-driven for me, is understanding that is my priority. Because there's lots of things that have come up even since that, would I like to coach in certain areas, been asked different things. But if it's not my main thing, isn't keeping it the main thing, then every time I've had to say no. And I've been okay with that. I'm grateful for that. So.
I love it. I love that there's a purpose behind it. Ephesians 2:10. It's great. And what does purpose-driven coaching mean to your athletes when they arrive?
Well, I'm also love cyclical leadership, right? Or trying to develop leaders. And so what I've been able to do is, because this is a little bit of a family business, I've been able to, although it's 5 years old as of yesterday, which I can't believe it's 5 years old. And at the same time,
hey, happy anniversary. That's pretty big.
Yeah. And I can't believe it's not 20 years old, right? It feels like we've been doing it forever, because I think we kind of have, because the development of leaders is just what I've done in the school setting, and then also doing it within a context of sport, right? So sport and life often mirror each other. And so by allowing these kids, let's say Hudson, came into the program last year, which is Shane's son, all of a sudden, in a year or two, I'm sure I'm going to be asking Hudson to be involved with the coaching aspect in the same way that I've done that with Marcus, who's my oldest son, Carter, who's my middle son, and Robbie, who's my youngest son here as well. So it's this idea of ensuring leadership and not necessarily having to be the one who is always doing it, yet always being ensure of quality control. And that's kind of where I would say my how I've tried to work that, is trying to ensure the product is the best in the city and province, or I don't want to say best, but is definitely right at the top end. And my coaches make a huge impact on that.
So, before Shane jumps in, I think this is really neat, because, a number of weeks ago we had gentleman by the name of Mano Watts, a basketball coach, the CEO of Point Guard College, come on and share about his purpose and share about, running Point Guard College and share about, developing leaders, but not just in the athletes, but in these coaches. And at the same time, in Saskatchewan, sometimes we're just too small for Point Guard College to arrive in our backyard and run a camp. And so for the listeners that listen to that and we're like, how do I get my kid into, a Point Guard College camp? I just want you to keep listening, because it sounds like Masterpiece Basketball is carving out a really unique purpose here. And so that's what's getting me excited, I guess, as I hear you talk more here, Geoff, and because it's more than just even bringing a camp counselor in to teach someone how to do a layup. It's like, how are we developing you as a leader as you develop the young athletes below you in the same regard, right?
Yeah, well, and I think that's like one of the things that I've been doing forever now. I think I'm over 20, I can't remember. It's like 23 or 24 years doing Clipper basketball camps. And so what I've really done is taken the idea of a camp, which is like 1 week in a year, and basically turned it into a year-long camp where I'm able to make relationships with not just the kids, but with the kids and players and their family members, and grandparents. To be honest with you, it's been intergenerational. So it's a very different way of doing basketball. And in that way, I'm not just about the elite players, although the elite players show up and they can learn and they'll get the coaching that they need to get. But it's also about the kids, like not forgetting the ones that are in the, the middle third or the bottom third, because again, each one of them can learn some stuff through sport. So there's so many different ways that we approach it. It isn't elitist, but it serves the elite players, and in the same way, it's going to help the kids they're in the middle, right? So that's my teaching, a little bit my teacher in me coming out as well, right? You don't just walk past everybody else. Make the weakest part of the chains stronger too.
That's right.
Hey listeners, Shane here. A few years ago, my wife and I purchased a new home, and we were really excited to move in, but it needed one thing. We were unhappy with the basement. We needed a major renovation. We wanted a space where us and our 3 grown boys would want to spend time together. Hang out, play games, watch a game, but most importantly, just be together. That's when we called Speargrass Homes. They were professional, detailed, but most importantly, you could feel they genuinely wanted to get the space right for us. Not just a nice looking basement, but one that worked for us. One where we wanted to be, and one where we wanted to be together and invite others to be together with us. Now it's our favorite spot in the house. We all hang out there. We've even had the boys basketball team over for some team building. Anyways, if you're looking to transform some space at home into a place people actually want to be, Speargrass gets it. They do renovations, new homes, windows and doors, all sorts of projects. And with, most importantly, integrity. Trustworthy, thoughtful, easy to work with. You can find them at speargrasshomes.ca. SPEARGRASSHOMES.ca.
We talk a lot about transformational versus transactional coaching on this program with numerous people. And so, you introducing purpose-driven coaching, love it. Just another phrase to add to the toolbox. What's the best part of purpose-driven coaching? Like having a purpose that drives you. What's the best part about that?
Well, you guys know, like at the elite level, sometimes there's hard feelings or different things at times that can occur. So I'd say some part of the purpose-driven is to understand it. Again, it gives me my why, right? So if somebody's upset with something, I can always revert back to what is driving me. What's the reason why we're doing what we're doing? And it's rare, but the occasional time, if somebody's unhappy, then we go and we talk about that. So I would say that those would be, that's one aspect. So when things are going awry or you feel unfair criticism, then all of a sudden you can take a look at that. And again, that's like far and few between. On the other side of things, when you are purpose driven and you understand that not winning or losing is not that winning is the be all end all, what you end up getting is you start to look at, like, have these guys progressed? How much have they moved as players, but more importantly, as young men? And so watching the kids kind of, grow and develop, but at the same time, like as young men, more importantly than as necessarily as players. Yet almost always it goes hand in hand, right? Like when you're watching a kid, like last year we were 0-5 to start our year in the City League in Regina. That's my high school basketball team, Regina Christian. And so the focus for me on next practice, like obviously we're going to work on skills, we're going to work on different things that way, but it was more working on the area in which they, lack of confidence. Why do they have lack of confidence? If I can just understand the reason behind what I'm trying to accomplish in that next practice, I can become far more effective, I think, in that regard. So just understanding what the purpose is every practice, and by every step along the way, having everybody take 2 steps forward before we take, a half step back, we're going to be better. And at the end of the year, we end up winning a provincial title that I didn't think was necessarily going to happen in that first 5 games of the year.
So, I mean, talk to me about provincial titles. Shane's bragged a little bit about the program, and I know that winning isn't the be all and the end all, but it sounds like the process that you're taking is producing some fruit as well. And we've seen some victories coming out of your high school basketball team.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go back in history. Like we've won 9 in total at this point in time, 8 of the last 11. So we started to figure it out a little bit. It took a while, to be honest with you, to try and get to that point. And we can talk a little bit of when I felt that teams, there were teams that I thought should have won that didn't, and I had to look in the mirror. That was a good time in my life. But before that, like in 2002, when I just, straight up started. We just started the high school at Regina Christian. There was no high school before that year. So within that first, we had a bunch of grade 9s and a couple grade 11s. And so within the first year, we were just starting, in a volleyball-sized gymnasium. Next year, we finally got our new gym, which was at terrible shape, but way better. And so within our second year, we were at regionals. Third year, we were at provincials, lost, came in 4th. And then in my 4th year, we won provincials. So it was like kind of this, immediately you started to see this sort of step and how the process became way more important, again, than the product. The product just kind of took care of itself. And then over the next while down the road, we ended up losing a bunch of games to a team called CCA, out in Saskatoon. And I never thought we should lose to them. Like I thought we were a better team. And I started to look in the mirror and say like, okay, so if we are better athletes, we are better, I think, honestly, like better, I can skills coach that other guy. I'm not sure what's going on, then what's the issue? So I had to look in the mirror and start to, it was very play-based. And all of a sudden I started to change to something called like trigger-based. This is what it's called now, is like trigger-based coaching. And so that's where I started to evaluate all the offense, all the movements, and all the process, and just got a way better result. And the one result I disliked for my players in those first 5 to, I would say, 6 years was they ended up at the end of basketball season, they just didn't want to play basketball anymore. Like they didn't like playing because they weren't playing. They were just kind of doing sets and doing plays. And so eventually I'm like, man, I want these guys to be able to play basketball together at men's league and stuff after. And if they all hate basketball after the fact, yet we win or are winning most of our stuff, then what's the point of that too? So there's, lots of, purpose, and my purpose is there's lots of multiple purposes that are going on, I think, within all that.
Well, just even within that, look in the mirror reality that you had to face. Mm-hmm. What was the hardest part about that?
Being humbled, right? Like I felt it's weird, right? Because you feel at times like your work isn't paying off, right? So it's like, why is this not paying off? And it wasn't that I wasn't working hard. It was that I wasn't, working smarter, not harder. And so the concept of taking each practice and making it more applicable to every kid, making every kid good at passing, not just, my point guard good at passing, not just put my best 2 players in pick and roll, but have all 5 players get better throughout the entire year, just even based on a change of the offense. There's a lot of different things there, but that was one of them in that regard. And I think you could transfer that into all areas of life, right? Like if you take, everyone who's good, specifically at evangelism, let's just say in the church, right? There's like certain people who are just really, really good at it. But if you can take everybody and move everyone and advance everybody in a certain skill set that way, well, then the church is served better as well.
Well, and you mentioned the hardest part being humbled. Well, if you take it to another layer, what was hard about that?
The part, like understanding that the lack of success of another individual was based a little bit on my lack of preparation or my lack of ability. So I think the humbling part, I never ever have looked at like failure as like a weakness. My dad was an Air Force pilot and a pastor. And, from a standpoint of an Air Force pilot, he was pretty amazing, like graduated one of the top in his class and was anti-submarine aircraft carrier and all this sort of stuff. But when he was in his 30s, he gave up the whole Air Force in order to go and be a pastor, and not even that, missionary. And he used to go up to northern Prince Albert and go into the penitentiaries and things like that. And I can remember, and even thinking as I got a little older, and there were times in my dad's life where I saw some humbling experiences along the way, and how he handled each one of those. It wasn't easy. Lots of times it was difficult. It actually, many of our moves were based on some of those things. But to see how my dad handled being humbled, I think allowed me to understand that provides a new start, and it gives you some new motivation, I think, in order to be better. And since that point in time, like we've just taken off completely. And it wasn't that much more work. It was just being smarter.
Okay. You mentioned in that growth and those changes that really started to step the program forward. You mentioned two things: play-based and trigger-based coaching. And I guess part of my question really is, if I am a young coach right now and I'm looking at this going, how do I up my practices? What does he mean by play-based? How do I get everyone involved to make sure that they have a love of the game? What are you doing that sets you apart?
Yeah, so I would say my older mentality of play-based is like you're running just a bunch of sets, right? So,
so set plays.
Right, a set play, more like football, right? Like, so
Yep.
What ends up happening in that one is the coach becomes highly, every single play down, you're calling a play out. And so that takes away the freedom, I think, from the players to kind of be, who they are and what they can be. Yet it puts them in usually the best positions where they can create off of things as well. So it's kind of a balance. Whereas trigger plays is more, every single thing has a specific, if you want to look like a read or a reaction base to it. So it's not so much, it's a way of playing as opposed to playing a certain way. And so there's that's the way that I would say. And then within your practices, trying to have each of those type of things, each trigger allowing the kids a certain reaction or reactions that everyone else will know, where they're going or what to do, and try and help and be in the best position for their teammate in order to, for the team to be better, essentially.
Yeah, like conceptual offense is another term to use there.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? Because a lot of the terms that are coming out right now, these are things that now I've been doing this for, last 15 years for sure. And it's funny to just sort of see in some ways I was ahead of it. And now it's like, now I'm trying to go and see where everything's have taken it, and now trying to relearn again. Like even the last, Shane calls me up, what was it, like 4 days ago? It was 5 days ago, because we've been using a 4-out offense within the Briarcrest team for a while. And then he's like, hey, I think everyone's hurt. We need 5 out. Let's move to that. And so essentially our next, 2 days, we're into a whole bunch of new triggers that are being established for the kids. And yet that still worked with much of the terminology before. So it's really like almost like a way of combining football and, hockey to a certain extent, because it's this like such a free flowing game. Hockey has been that way, right? Like free flowing and moving. Right. Whereas whereas football is the opposite. And so now it's trying to take both of those and almost put those together. And I'll give you an example. Even like a couple of years ago, I came to the Red Deer College Shane like game where that's a sad one, I know, but there's a lot. He's got a lot of amazing things have happened since then. But we came to a Red Deer College game, and the Clippers were running something called pistol, like a lot. And so pistol is like an action based off of like a play, but essentially it's like a pick and roll with a shake on it. And so as that's taking place, the other team, they were kind of ready for it. And so once that broke down, there wasn't sort of like a base flow or a base offense. So it was kind of neat because Shane and I started to work together in the spring that year on a club team. And all of a sudden, Shane, and even with Masterpiece, actually, he was doing it during the league. And the kids just started to just run this basically flowing offense that we have that's a trigger-based offense. And I remember Shane saying, like, I don't want to coach because I don't want to mess this up. Like, I'm not sure what they're doing. I have no idea, but it works completely. Like, so it was good. And so then we just kept talking. And then over the next process, kind of tried to help instill that within the Clippers even last year. And it was kind of neat to see when when things just stopped working, they at least had a base set of triggers to work with.
Right. Yeah, and full context. It was interesting because we got eliminated from the playoffs, and I was watching the Keanu College Huskies win a national championship, and they're in our conference. And I noticed watching all their playoff games that they just had basically a conceptual base offense of when what they were calling didn't work, they would just flow into that. And I was like, okay, we're missing that. And then I started working with Geoff. He basically almost handed over a group of 13-year-olds to me. And I think we lost one game all in 3 months or something like that. But I remember at the end of it, it was just like, I just didn't want to screw it up because these kids already knew what to do. And I just had to fit in and just gain their trust. And once we did that, it was good. But then it was just like, okay, let's implement this into our college program. And probably one of the most fun things is like when I'm just even watching a scrimmage, it actually looks like basketball without me saying anything, because the guys just know it's learning how to play the game and to trust the man next to you. And that's probably one of the things that I enjoy the most. It's hard, but once you develop that trust, we're going through it right now. Once you develop that trust, it's pretty cool to see just the interactions and just the camaraderie that comes about of it. So yeah, it's fun when you got a group of 13-year-olds could teach a group of 21-year-olds how to play basketball. Is kind of neat.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Grit and Growth podcast. We hope that you enjoyed today's guest and the answers that they were able to give and the stories they were able to tell. If you did enjoy today's episode, we'd ask that you would just follow or subscribe to our podcast. It does help us get the word out and our message. Thanks again. Have a great day.